I can't wait to share with you my 3 favorite ways to create or alter embellishments that work perfectly for my projects. This video is a collaboration with the creative design team. We're focusing on back to school projects, but as you'll see, I'm switching mine up a bit. Make sure you click on the playlist that's linked at the end of this video so you can see all of their beautiful projects. My daughter is only 3, so I don't have any school photos of her yet. I decided to create a layout about how much she loves books. She's loved them since she could sit up, and now she can recite several of her favorites by heart, and I have never scrapbooked this. I grabbed the Cozy Up collection from close to my heart because of the great book themes in some of the paper and the stickers, as well as this Gnomes for Autumn, mostly for this word search paper because I thought that would go perfectly. Both are really fall themed collections, but they're going to work for me anyways, even though my layout isn't fall at all. So I took that word search paper, I gutted out the middle, left about 1.25 inches border around the edge, and then I took this brown pattern from the Cozy Up collection and I cut it down to 11 by 11. And then I used my Cricut to cut out a circle out of white cardstock that is 8.5 inches. So I thought this would be a really good landing place for my photos so they'd kind of pop against that background. My initial thought here was to make kind of a wreath. So I thought I could take this pattern paper and cut out these little books. Now they are pretty simple cuts. They're like rectangles, squares, like pretty easy fussy cutting. So I thought I could cut them out and then put them under the circle, kind of like a wreath. So last night while I was watching a movie, I just pulled out my piece of paper and my micro tip scissors and really easily cut these out. It wasn't difficult at all. And sometimes I forget to look at my pattern papers for icons that I can use as embellishments. It's a great way to utilize that paper. It's a pretty busy pattern and I don't know that I would really use it all as one. So this is a great way to kind of chop it up and have custom embellishments that automatically match the colors in my paper. I also thought I might want some greenery on my wreath, so I brought in the Sprigs and Leaves thin cut. Sadly, this one is sold out, but you're going to see me keep using it because I love it. It works so good, and I love the leaves that it cuts out. I did it once in Rosemary cardstock and one in Sage, and I thought maybe I could tuck them kind of sporadically behind the books, maybe alternate the different greens. I don't know. I know that if I don't use them, they'll just go in my die cut drawer and I can always pull them out for another project. But I thought it was worth a shot to see if I wanted something besides just books in this wreath. So I have a few options of what I can use to fill this out. And then I also wanted to bring in this Gnome Die. So this is for the Gnomes for Autumn special. She's super cute and she's really big, so she's perfect for layouts. You can use her for cards too, and I have more ways that I want to utilize this die, but I thought it'd be a perfect way to accent this page. So she's about 4.25 by 4.5 inches, I think, altogether. I cut the base out of Shortbread cardstock on the light side. Remember, close to my heart cardstocks have a light side and a dark side. The flower is out of honey butter and the flower center is out of that brown pattern paper that I have on my background there. And then both of these pieces, the hat and the shirt, are from the pattern papers. The stripe one is from the Gnome paper and the red one is from the Cozy Up paper. Then I used Toffee cardstock to cut out her little braids, and I thought that would be like the perfect hair color. It's lighter than the background so it stand out. And then the stem of the flower is cut from Rosemary. And then her tiny little shoes here, I actually cut out from the back side of the book paper. There's a bunch of pumpkins. So it's actually an orange pumpkin that I cut out. And then her little nose there is cut out of Desert Rose, I believe on the light side. She also has 2 little hands that I also cut out of the light side of Shortbread. So there's lots of little pieces there, but lots of room for customization. I am going to be playing more with her in the future. So I figured since there's one sunflower there, I should die cut more flowers and maybe work them into my wreath. We'll see. I kind of wanted to balance out that yellow and not just have like one bright spot. Now, looking at the sticker sheet, there's some really good options. I love that stack of books. There's actually a stamp set that has that stack of books. I don't have it, but Janice used it in her video this week. So if you want to see that, you can go watch her video. It's a great one. I'm using my anti-static pouch on the back to remove most of the stickiness just so that I can lay my stickers out on my page, test it out. I'm doing a lot of like adjusting and moving things around and trying to figure out exactly where I want everything. So I definitely cannot be just plopping stickers down. I got to have some way to move them around. I really love to map my photos. I love how it makes them pop. I thought maybe I would use this red pattern. It's the same one that I have on her hat there, on the little gnome's hat. And there's not a ton of red in my photos or anything, but there's a little bit on a couple of my daughter's books. But then I really want to use that title. Now, that So Many Books title is kind of an awkward shape, doesn't really fit in with my design super well. So I was trying to decide if I want that much red, or maybe I should switch it up with a different color, if that title's even going to fit or work into my layout. Like, it's really long. Now I just can't decide, so I'm going to put that aside like I usually do. I grabbed this set. It's called Date Stamp. It is an older one, but I love the look of the library card and pocket. I stamped it with Mocha ink onto the light side of Shortbread cardstock, and I thought, books, that would go perfectly. And I haven't actually used that set before. It's still available on the website. I will make sure to link it down below along with everything else that I'm using. I am still working on this title. Like, how can I make this title work on this page? I'm determined to make it work somehow. So my solution is to chop it in half. I figured if I split it up, maybe it wouldn't look so overpowering and I could kind of make it work. I knew I had to use it. I love the title. And I decided, since it is red, I swapped out the color of my photo mats. I exchanged the red for Desert Rose. So it's still, that red, pink, I think it still works. There's Desert Rose in the papers, so it definitely coordinates. And then I'm just kind of messing around with embellishments. I'm doing a lot of messing around with embellishments on this layout, trying to figure out, because I didn't have a really strong picture in my mind. I had the general idea of doing a wreath underneath this circle, and that was about it. So, you kind of have to play with things, move them around, and if they don't work for you, like my title, don't forget that you can chop things up. I could have even taken those words and maybe cut them out of my Cricut or stamped them. So you could even take a sentiment that you love and make it work by using a different medium. Don't be afraid to cut up those stickers. Now, I decided before I went any further, I wanted to add a little bit of ink, mostly because this circle was really blending into the little books underneath. So I thought I'd ink my photo mats. I'm going to ink my little library card here. And I'm just using the mini ink blending tool and Toffee ink. I didn't want it to be super dark, so I didn't use Mocha. I just wanted just a slight little bit. I didn't want it to look super aged or anything, but just add a little bit of definition. And it really does help this circle. I just needed a little punch. And then for this, I didn't really want to ink it because ink is not going to show up. So I grabbed my Tim Holtz sanding block here, and I am sanding that edge. Since it is like a white core paper, I can sand off the printing on the paper and get that nice little bit of white exposed there. This works really well. Just got to make sure you wipe up all the sanding dust afterwards because it will get onto everything. And then I wonder why I have brown smudges on everything, and it's because I forgot to wipe up the dust. So for my background paper here, I did ink the edges with Toffee as well. There are some words on here that are like fall themed, but I didn't even worry about it because I figured, no one's going to be looking at that. They're going to look at the photos. They're going to look at the embellishments, the journaling, and that's pretty much it. It's going to register that there's letters on there, but I don't think many people will actually put together that there's fall themed words on this piece. So I didn't worry about it. I'm going to start to put this together now. Just put this down first, put some tape around the outside of my brown piece here, stick that down, kind of just like re-putting on the layers. I started out with ATG on here, so it'd be flat. I end up kind of like ripping that up afterwards and putting some foam tape on there because it needed some separation from the books underneath. Otherwise, there still wasn't enough definition even with the ink on there. It worked much better once I added some foam tape. I added back my little gnome here just as a placeholder so I could figure out where everything was going to go because I wanted to add some little mushrooms. So I put in a couple of mushrooms from the sticker sheet, that little snail, super cute. And now I'm going to swap out with my other Versamat because I want to do some coloring. So this is perhaps my favorite part of the whole layout. I know I used like some pattern paper and cardstock, but I wanted to add dimension to it. And this is one of my favorite ways to change up, to customize die cut embellishments, is to add some shading, whether you want to do ink blending or if you want to use markers like I am. I'm using a combination of Copics and TriBlend markers, just depending on whatever colors I had to work with my papers. I did put some printer paper under here, just some scratch paper so that I'm not coloring on my Versamat. And then I'm just flicking in everywhere that I want shadow. This is an N4, so still a fairly light gray marker. You could even use a red if you want to, but I didn't want to worry about trying to match the red. I thought gray would be easier. And this is a very subtle pattern paper, and I think the gray actually works perfectly to add shadow. It is absolutely amazing to me how just that little bit of super simple coloring just adds a lot of dimension. And once you do it to all the pieces, add shading to them all, it really takes your die cut embellishment to the next level. Now, I'm also going to add in some texture. So this is the Earth Brown Blends marker, so sort of like a medium brown. The TriBlend markers have light, medium, and dark all on one, whereas like the Copic markers, they only have one shade per marker. I'm going in with the lightest one to kind of plan out where I want my shadows to be. Just for that first one, because I wasn't exactly sure, I wanted to kind of try it out first. So I'm kind of going from the points and flicking outwards. You can definitely use your Copics or whatever markers you have for this. I want to make sure not to add too much because I want to have room for 2 to 3 colors in here. And I want the texture of those little strokes. I'm making them different lengths, different widths. You don't want them to be too uniform because then it kind of looks strange. But you want to leave that highlight in the middle, kind of where the hair would naturally bubble out and have a highlight. So where it's all gathered together, it's darker. And then where it's kind of like puffed out, it's a little bit lighter. So I went in with the dark, medium, and just a hair of light. I could even left the light off actually, and it would have given me a little bit more of a brighter highlight. For her cute little shoes here, I'm using the N2, and I'm just going to shade the top where like her shirt would be overhanging, and then at the bottom where her shoes would be touching the ground. It's a little tricky on these tiny pieces. You got to just kind of go quickly and with a light hand. And that's why I like starting on the scratch paper and just flicking on, because I get a little bit more subtle blend on there. Now, I did the sides of the shirt, totally unnecessary. I didn't realize that the braids would be coming down and covering those up. So I put some around the neckline, and then I blended that out with the colorless blender just to soften it a little bit because the N2 looked a little bit dark on there. Next, I'm going to color her little nose, and this was out of the Desert Rose cardstock, and I'm using the Antique Pink TriBlend marker, and I'm going dark, medium, and light, blending over those colors. And then at the top there, I'm just going to use my colorless blender just to smooth out those lines. And that actually worked really perfectly. When I was looking for colors of markers to use, I actually went for colors that were either just a little bit darker than the color of my cardstock, or a gray like I'm using here is N2. Kind of switched between N2 and N4 depending what I thought would work well on the color of cardstock. Now, of course, you can skip this. You could just build your gnome the way you want to, and that is totally fine. You do not need to color. You could also add color with colored pencil if you want to, or your blending brushes. I'm just trying to get back into using my markers a little bit more because I've fallen out of that habit. And since they sit right beside me on my desk, I thought, you know what? Let's just bring them in and do a little bit of quick coloring. And the fun thing about coloring on die cuts is it doesn't have to be as specific or perfect as you feel like when you're using a line image, like a stamped image, right? It's a little bit loose, a little bit more free, and I think definitely easier. I ended up using Y35 and Y17 for my flowers, and now I'm using my Barely Art glue to just stick these together. I just got this glue, so I'm kind of testing it out. The other creative design team members kept telling me how wonderful it is and magical and that I should get it. So I'm going to glue a few of these pieces on. I still want to color her skin, but I need these other pieces in place so that I can see where her skin kind of starts and ends and what's going to be covered up by the other pieces. I like all the detail of having these different pieces that you can cut out, and these actually stick together really easily. I am glad that the packaging comes with a really good photo, so if you get lost, you can just look at the packaging and it shows you where all the pieces go. But it's pretty straightforward and everything fits perfectly. I'm not going to attach her little nose yet because I want to do some shading first. I went ahead and stuck on my flower center, and now I'm grabbing E30 and R20, that'll be my skin tone, and my blush. If you have TriBlend markers, you could use the gold brown blend. The lightest shade is very close to that E30. And then you could also use the light pink blend for the R20. It's a pretty close match actually. So I will say blending this skin was probably the hardest part of this whole thing. So if you didn't want to work at it the way I'm kind of working at it to get this to blend in, you could definitely ink blend a little bit of shortbread ink on there or skip it and just let the other pieces be blended and her skin just be a solid color. So I did put the blush color down first, the R20, and then I blended over that with my E30. I think next time, because this is not blending cardstock, right? It's not designed to be blending cardstock. Maybe I start with the skin tone first, then the blush, and then layer on the skin tone again. But I'm also making sure to shade her little hand pieces that go on top there. Since everything else is shaded, I didn't want to leave those out. And I am in love with how she comes together. She is super cute and dimensional. I am going back over with my colorless blender, just trying to smooth out that skin. I pretty much soaked right through this paper. It's a very thirsty cardstock. It's not meant for marker coloring, but I thought I could get away with it. So she is so cute and dimensional, and she almost looks kind of printed, which I think is very cool. But like I said, you don't have to go this in depth, but it's a fun way that you can alter any die cuts you have to make them suit your project. I did a couple things off camera just in the interest of time. Everything you're seeing is stuck down. I did my journaling with a brown pen. I decided to put those sunflowers kind of tucked in around my photos and the title just to have that little hint of yellow in a little bit of a triangle there. Now I'm stamping the month and the year using that same library date stamp with Mocha ink. And just to add my date somewhere in there, I was going to put it on the little library card, but then I had so much to say, as per usual, that there wasn't room for it. So I decided to put it below the photo since there was a little bit of an empty spot there anyways. And my circle is stuck down on foam tape. So really the major thing I need to do now is create this wreath. So I'm just going to use my ATG. The reason I did that instead of liquid glue, because if I change my mind, I have a little bit more grace to peel it up. Because I am just willy-nilly going in there trying to alternate between colored books like the stacks of books and the flat notebooks and the open books, and basically just create some variety, stick them in at different angles, overlapping each other a little bit, but I didn't want to put them too close because then it would get even busier. Now, if you like less detailed designs, you could definitely skip all these books, right? Then you wouldn't have to do any fussy cutting. I would just make that circle a little bit bigger so that you could extend it out a little bit. It would fill up some of that empty brown space. You could also, instead of books, do flowers or leaves or whatever you would like around there. I had debated adding leaves, but I think it's going to be too busy. I think there's enough with just that little bit of greenery around the flowers in the center, and I was just really concerned that it was going to get too busy and that I was going to start not liking it. I love how in one layout I was able to combine die cuts, stickers, stamped embellishment, and then also pieces cut from the pattern paper. I would love to hear down in the comments What is your favorite way to embellish? Maybe I can get some different ideas. I think it's fun to stretch ourselves and look at our supplies differently. I definitely don't usually fussy cut out my paper too much, and I wouldn't do it for super intricate designs. Like on the rest of that paper, besides the books, there was tiny little leaves and little acorns and things like that, and there is no way I'm cutting out those tiny little images. The only reason I did it on here was because it was like simple shapes that were actually really easy to cut out, and because I'm tucking them under this circle, if some of them are sort of cut off or they're not perfect, it really doesn't matter. Nobody's going to know. So that was kind of my easy way out on that one. I didn't have to worry about it being perfect. I'm so happy to finally have at least some of this story documented. I have so many pictures of my daughter reading books at different ages and stages, and I had so many different photos to choose from, but I'm glad at least I have a start on documenting this story, because it has been such a big thing for her ever since she started sitting up. And she still loves books. She's on to like Curious George now and Clifford. Those are a couple of her favorites. She loves those too. And I'm just excited to see what comes next. I think we might start working on some letter sounds because she is memorizing her stories and she wants to tell me her stories. So I definitely want to encourage her in that. Now, have you guys noticed anything out of place? Is there anything that you've kind of been watching me build this layout and it kind of is standing out to you like, something here is not like the others? Well, yes, I did put an extra little leaf in there because I thought it needed a little bit more green in there, but something else. Do you see it? That extra little white mark down in that bottom left-hand sort of corner side there. When I was sanding, that one spot, for whatever reason, sanded way more than the other parts, and I decided it was going to bother me if I left it like that. So I'm going to use 2 pieces of printer paper here to mask off the edge because I want to make sure I'm not sanding that word puzzle paper. And basically, I just want to hit the corners. So this is risky here. I have my layout all stuck together, and if I mess this up to the point where I hate it, well, I'm kind of stuck with that unless I want to try and like fill it in with a marker or something, which I could have also done, but I felt like that might stand out. So my solution was just make it blend in and look a little bit more purposeful. And of course, I got to brush off all that dust that's on there, but I think that's better. It looks like it was meant to be instead of now the anomaly of this white dot that's on there. And you can see when I zoom in, it makes a lot more sense. You can see the scratches and stuff along the sides. I'm so happy with how this came out, and I hope you got some really fun ideas of how to alter or create new embellishments to go with your layouts or your cards. And make sure you check out the playlist here at the end of the video so that you can watch the rest of the creative design team. All the videos have been posted on the last one. So have fun watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.